In 2024, the Pittsburgh Steelers finished 10-7 after starting the season 10-3. They lost the last 4 games of the regular season, then entered the playoffs, being knocked out in the wildcard rounds by their division rival in the Baltimore Ravens. This is the 6th time in a row in 8 years that they've done that. This left many Steelers fans very frustrated. They're upset. They're wanting more than what they have been given in the last few years with this current regime and Mike Tomlin, the Rooney family, and other personnel. The Steelers have, no doubt, they've struggled mightily in the last 6 to 8 years, and getting beyond the wild card round, fan frustration, that's understandable. It really is. But the Steelers' problem could not be more obvious, in my opinion. Some fans, they want to scapegoat the Rooney family, their ownership, and their inability to change. Some blame Mike Tomlin for similar reasons, his lack of change, maybe his hand being too many jars all at one time. But, you know, some blame recent members of the assistant coaching staff. Currently, defensive coordinator Terrell Austin, offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, and formerly Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, rightfully so, Randy Finkner even, going even further back, and so on. There's plenty of scapegoats here. Some blame the players and their lack of drive, but I looked into it, and I found the primary reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers have seemingly lost their way, and I'm going to tell you how they can fix it. But just before we get into this video, let me let you know about this great energy drink brand right behind me. You see Dubby Energy. They're my favorite energy drinks. They're cost-effective. They also taste better than just about any energy drink you can find on the market. They cost less than basically every energy drink. They're only about $1 per drink. That you can't be beat. You're paying $3 or $4 at a gas station for one. You can get 4 of those with just this purchase. And hey, maybe you don't want to get this full-size tub right behind me. That's understandable. They have single serving packets right here. This one is one of their hydration flavors. Not just energy, there's also hydration. Check them out at dubby.gg and make sure you use code SHREDDER, SHRD3R, for 10% off your order of anything on their website. Go to the website dubby.gg or click the link in the description, and let's get back to the video. So getting right into it, we have 3 places where this problem may lie. Number 1, the ownership, the executives of the team. Number 2, the coaching staff. And number 3, the personnel surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Starting with the ownership, okay? Let's break this one down one at a time. The Rooney family, they have owned the Steelers for a long time. Basically, the entire tenure of the Steelers being a team. Since 1933, it has been in their name with 3 acting owners: Art Rooney, Dan Rooney, and Art Rooney II. This team, they're known for its loyalty, its tradition, having only 3 coaches in the last 55 years: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. Ownership like this does not come around often. We rarely see owners stick with their own guys in any sport at all. Most coaches are in and out the door in 3 to 5 years, and a lot of teams will have 2 or 3 guys in a single decade. It has been almost 6 decades, and they've had 3 head coaches. That is unheard of territory. Ownership like this ownership is solid. There's really nothing to look at here, in my opinion. They've produced Super Bowl winning teams 6 times in their history, a league-leading 6 times, that is. And they have competitive teams almost always. Almost always. There's rarely a really bad year for this Steelers team. It's essentially Steelers tradition to be competitive, no matter how good the team is, the team makeup is, or anything like that. But with the legacy that they bring in winning, in culture, and all that lies within Pittsburgh, how do they go nearly a decade long without a single playoff win? Just a single playoff win. How do they do that? This culture of loyalty seems pretty firm, but I think the problem resides elsewhere. Let's check out their second place. Maybe the coaching staff is the problem. The Steelers last won a Super Bowl in 2009 under second-year head coach Mike Tomlin. Since then, they have gone 5-10 in the playoffs. Not great. They've only made the AFC Championship game 2 times since then, in 2011 and 2017, winning it in 2011, but ultimately falling short versus Green Bay in the Super Bowl, and losing pretty badly in 2017 to a Patriots team led by none other than Chris Hogan. The Steelers haven't had a losing season under Tomlin at all in his career, which is impressive. Going 9-8 a handful of times, 8-8-1 one year, but it's been rough treading since 2011. You can definitely tell that much. Not making another Super Bowl. How much of this can really fall on Mike Tomlin, though? That's really the big question here. If you ask him, just about all of it.
What you mentioned is my story. It's not this collective story. Many of these guys involved do not tote those bags. I happily tote those bags. But it's not something that I'm going to project on the collective.
But in reality, is it all his fault? Let's look at what happened to this team after that 2011 season. In 2012, they lost key players like Casey Hampton, Mike Wallace, and offensive coordinator Bruce Arians, which was a big hit to this team. 2013, they lose Lamar Woodley, Jason Worlds, Emmanuel Sanders, Ryan Clark, one of their big-time safeties back there with Troy Polamalu. 2014, they lose Ike Taylor, standout corner, Brett Kiesel, standout D-end, two huge pieces of that ferocious 2000s defense. And 2015, they lose a legend in Troy Polamalu. A lot of losses, mainly on that defensive side, since 2011. By 2016, look at this defense. A couple of bright spots in Cam Hayward and Ryan Shazier, only in their 5th and 2nd years, but that's really it. There's nothing else here. At the height of this Killer Bees era with Ben Brown and Bell, you have a bad defense and an atrocious secondary. I mean, look at these guys. These guys wouldn't play on teams after a lot of this, and, you know, that's a big time problem here. Through all of this, through it all, this defense was never worse than 18th in 2014. And other than that, 14th in 2013. That is just beyond the halfway mark. That's really not that bad. It's not good, but it's definitely not horrible. But that's what good coaching does. It brings out the best in poor talent. Just think of the Vikings this year. A guy like Sam Darnold, whose career was basically all but over, comes in and has an incredible year because he finally has a coach who knows how to run an NFL offense. It changes everything for these guys. Mike Tomlin did the same thing for these Steelers defenses. No matter how bad the players truly were, they still were producing at least decently. In 18 years, he's never had a losing season. But in those 18 years, 12 of them, the Steelers finished in top 10 in the defensive categories with an average of 8.5 in those 18 years. That's rare and great coaching. 66% of the time they're in the top 10. That's awesome. You can even look at oddball years later on down the line, like 2019, where this team had to play Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, two guys who are not starters in this league and are hardly backups. One of them not even playing for another team after he left Pittsburgh after the season. They finished 8-8. Most coaches couldn't get 4 wins with these guys. But let's look at more of a modern sense. Let's look at the last 5 years since Big Ben returned from injury. In 2020, they had that 12-4 year where they won 11 games straight and went 1-4 in the last 5 games of the season, returning from Ben's injury. 2021, 9-7-1, Ben's final season. A lot of O-line issues that year. 2022, a rookie year for Kenny Pickett, 9-8, not so bad considering a rookie. 2023, 10-7, Kenny Pickett's first year to fully start, but he didn't actually end up finishing the season. And then in 2024, they bring in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and finish 10-7 once again. These teams pretty much have had the same makeup since 2020. And they were all expected to be bottom of the division and sub 8-win teams. They had 8.5 in their betting total, but they all overperformed. No hate to Big Ben, but in those final 2 years in 20 and 21, he was a bit of a shell of himself. I think the arm talent was fine, but he just was not mobile enough for the modern NFL anymore. After Big Ben left, they've had middling QB talent at best. Now let's move over to a different little section. The coordinators and position coaches, still under the coaching umbrella, starting with some obvious problems. But are they the problem? The big problem that's kept them from winning in the playoffs for the last 8 years? Let's start with Matt Canada. He was awful. Notably a bad offensive coordinator. Wasn't even a qualified collegiate OC. Never really had success at that level. He was hired from within, and that's probably the only reason why he got this job in the first place. Randy Finkner wasn't amazing prior to Matt Canada, but definitely was better than him. Currently, Terrell Lawson, the defensive coordinator, isn't really a fan favorite by any means. And these can be issues. There definitely is some issue to these. But once again, are they the problem? Offensive line coach Pat Meyer has long been seen as a scapegoat by many Steelers fans, and that can be understood. The O-line has not been the same since, well, he has been there, or Mike Munchak left after 2014. All these guys have not been great. That's a fact. And some may say that is Tomlin's fault still because he hires the coaching staff. Sure, some of those hires haven't been great, but no one is perfect. Something is always going to have to be the scapegoat, whether true or false. But Tomlin has redeemed himself recently by hiring high-profile offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. He was a good OC in year one, with working with a very limited crew on offense. Led some pretty great offenses like the Titans in 19 and 20. You've got to give this guy some time to work, though. Yeah, year one was a little bit, inconsistent, but look at who he's working with. Not a whole lot, simply starting with their receiver room. I know the standard in Pittsburgh is always Super Bowl or bust, but let's be real, Steelers fans. These teams aren't projected to have winning records, and they do. That is because of good coaching at the top. I don't think it's Tomlin's fault. They're not winning Super Bowls at this time? No, duh. They have terrible quarterback play and not even a good roster to go along with it, but they're still managing 9 wins. It's not great. But whose problem really is it? Finally, we'll move to the personnel, the players on this team. Let's focus on the problem at hand recently. The most important position in every single sport combined, the quarterback. Big Ben, his final years, he definitely was not the Big Ben Hall of Famer we all know and love. And then Kenny Pickett, Mitch and Mason, they shared the role in 2022 and 2023. 2024, we see Russell Wilson and Justin Fields brought in. Definitely an upgrade from the 2 years prior. But Fields is running on fumes of potential entering year 5 of his career now. And Russ hasn't seemed like the Hall of Famer he once was. Justin Fields still started his Steelers career 4-2, only losing to Dallas and Indianapolis. Russ played great entering the 3 games in 10 days stretch that the Steelers had to play. Not only that, though, they had to play the toughest second half schedule in the entire league. And all their 6 division games were in the last 8 weeks. And the 2 games of the last 8 weeks that weren't division games were Philadelphia and Kansas City. What a brutal stretch that is. Lose 1 or 2, and yeah, that mentality of the team could fall pretty easily. I wouldn't be worried about the vets, but I most definitely would have concerns over some of the young guys and the lower level, like the practice squad guys and things like that. Morale is contagious in team sports. It's a big deal. Losing 1 or 2 games in a row could really rock your team. It really doesn't help that Russell Wilson only had 1 real established wide receiver to help him out this season in George Pickens, and I think the Steelers collectively dropped the ball on that one, pun intended. But looking at the Steelers post-Ben Roethlisberger, no one has expected them to nearly even compete. They've been at 8.5 or worse in betting odds in the last 3 years, and betting odds, those people know something. So why are Steelers fans so upset? It's because they've been groomed into expecting more. The standard is high in Pittsburgh. There's no doubt about it. But also, we have to be realistic. It really is not shocking that they haven't won games in the postseason when they've had bad defenses when the quarterback was good back in like the late 2010s. And yeah, they statistically perform well in the season, but Ross Cockrell, Will Allen, Jarvis Jones, those guys are not good enough to be relied upon come playoff time. We saw that in 2017 against the Patriots in the championship round. And then moving to the 2020s, the defense recovers, but Ben gets hurt. He misses a year. He can't move anymore around the same as he once did because he's almost 40 years old. They go to Kenny Pickett in the first round, and it's been downhill from there. So, the big question, whose problem is it? Well, to me, looking through everything, the blame can be separated hundreds of ways, but every way you shake it, the biggest piece of the Steelers' blame pie goes to former GM Kevin Colbert. His last few drafts were awful. 2022, his final year, Pickett round 1, thinking he's going to be the savior of this franchise. I just think it was because he was in the building and they thought it was a great storyline Kevin Colbert did. He did steal George Pickens, but he always had a knack for finding wide receivers. Calvin Austin hasn't been amazing, but he's been suitable. Leal, Hayward, Robinson, they're all bottom of the depth chart guys. Chris Oladokun, 20 picks over Brock Purdy, didn't even stick around the team for a year. 2021, Najee Harris and Freiermuth, they've both been pretty good, but RB in the first round in 2021, it's not great. 2020, they trade their first round pick for Minka. That was a great trade. They got Alex Highsmith in round 3. They didn't have success with a single other player in that draft class, though. 2019, Devin Bush in round 1. What a bust. Deontay was a solid pick at the time, but nothing else at all in this whole draft. 2018, Terrell Edmonds, he was a day 2 pick projection by most NFL outlets. Not a good pick. You have to go all the way back to 2017 to find the last drafted All-Pro for the Steelers in TJ Watt. That's the only one in the last how many years? 5 years of drafts or more. Even earlier, after drafting Cam Hayward in 2011, his first round picks were 2012, David DeCastro. He was really good. 2013, Jarvis Jones, awful. 2014, Ryan Shazier, good, but his career got cut short. That's not really Kevin Colbert's fault, but it did happen. 2015, Bud Dupree, and 2016, Artie Burns. These were not good picks. Simply put, it wasn't good. And whose job was it to replace those 2000s defenses? Kevin Colbert. He didn't do a good job in replacing them, drafting a notable amount of duds in the top 3 rounds for years. What's Tomlin supposed to do when his GM can't get him good talent? Some people want to say it's Tomlin's say on who is on the roster. Not true. It is the GM's final say. He was also very reserved in the final few years of his free agency negotiations too, only really bringing in a old Joe Hayden in the last couple years. But to wrap this all up, Steelers fans, don't worry. You still have a pretty good roster, And your new GM, Omar Khan, seems like a huge upgrade. He's had some elite drafts in back-to-back years. Just look at these last 2 draft classes. You just have to stop overreacting. It's hard to win Super Bowls. The standard's high, I get it, but it is not easy to win Super Bowls. And no one was expecting Kenny Pickett to lead you to a Super Bowl in his first 2 years. Or league rejects like Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, no one expected them to get it done either. The goal is simple. Keep Mike Tomlin. He is an elite coach, and find the quarterback of the future. If you want to know how important the quarterback position is to success, let's look at the last 3 years of the playoffs. There is only 2 to 3 times in 3 years where the better quarterback did not win outside of the 49ers, who had a stacked team. The role of the quarterback is incredibly important. Pittsburgh, you have to find one that is good. Having one that is really good for 18 years can spoil you, but don't kid yourself. The grass is not greener on the other side. Getting rid of one of the best coaches in football history is a terrible play. And listen, I'm not telling you to settle for less. I'm saying you need to be understanding of your overachievements. Be appreciative for a great coach and a great young GM. If you want to know how the Pittsburgh Steelers can fix this problem, stay tuned to my channel and make sure you subscribe, because I'll be doing videos on how every franchise can fix their team going into 2025.